Welcome to the Sage Women podcast, hosted by Melanie White and Dr. Nick Engera. We have real conversations with real women, health professionals, and coaches who share stories about perimenopause, menopause, and a range of women's health issues. Please subscribe so you get the latest updates every fortnight.
Hey, it's Melanie on the Sage Women podcast, and I'm really excited to have back Natalie and Lisa Saunders to talk about community and the need for that in menopause. Ladies, welcome and thanks for being here.
Thanks so much.
Now, I think our listeners will know you, but just in case there's anyone new that hasn't met you before, could you both give us a brief rundown of your awesomeness?
Very happy to. So obviously we are both one half of Own Your Health Collective, but work with Sage in bringing wonderful education around menstrual health and menopause and overlapping that with our women's lifestyle coaching and health and wellbeing coaching. So for myself, very focused around mindset, stress, a yoga and meditation teacher as well, and really helping. And I have to say, over the years in doing this work, it's definitely evolved into helping women to really understand their thoughts and their feelings around this phase of life, and also how that transcends into their health and how that exacerbates stress and symptoms. But yeah, very passionate about this work that we do, and very fortunate. Lisa and I have a complementary skill set and experience, and obviously the wonderful skill set of Sage Women's Health as well. Lisa?
Yeah, so I'm the Nat's business partner and also co-owner with Own Your Health. And look, I suppose my passion lies in the whole food nutrition side of women's health. And one of the biggest things I think for me, as I'm in my early 50s, and one of the biggest things is around how we've let food sort of really govern how, what our weight looks like. And I'm really keen to obviously move that shift around how food can actually nourish us in our midlife, and be that while we're still menstruating or perimenopause and postmenopause as well. I think it's really important, and there's just not enough emphasis around that, and there's a lot of confusion. So, that's me. I really love that. I actually do really love the connection that also has to our gut health, our mental health, and our emotional health as well.
Gee, just from what you both have said, we could just have a whole conversation on all of that. I'm like, oh my God, cancer worms we could open. There's just so much great complementary skills that you have, and that's why we love working with you. But today we're talking about community and connection and why that's so important for women in midlife. So what is connection, really? What does it mean to you guys?
Yeah, I guess there's lots of different experiences. And I will say that I feel like my connections have definitely evolved over the years. And I think as you get older, and particularly enter your 40s and your 50s, there's just a real appreciation of being around people who see you and hear you and feel you for who you are. And we've loved bringing this flavour into our work, and not just in this space, but also for women in their career, in business as well, because there's a real collective mindset that we can build. And, there's nothing more important than having a good community around you and having good, positive connections. We know just what that does to our whole health, physical, mentally, emotionally. And for us, or for me, it's just about bringing people together who just see, hear you, and get you for who you are and where you are.
So good. I feel like we talked about this on our podcast a few weeks ago around the definition of connection, and it's something that joins or connects or relates to what it is that you're connected to, I suppose, in looking at it. And I think for women, that's a huge thing. And I don't know whether it's just that I'm liking things in my Instagram or my social media feeds lately, but there's a lot coming up around connection. And it's very clear that women and be it men as well, that humans naturally want to connect, don't they? And it's where they feel that they can be heard, that they can chat in a safe space. And I think for women, that's extremely important in this day and age, because there are, just like the weight thing that I was just talking about, there's so many messages out there about so many things that they could be facing at this point in their life. And I think that's where that connection is really, really important.
Mm. I love those definitions, and I'd like to pick up on a couple of points you just mentioned. Firstly, this wanting to connect with like-minded people. I mean, they say that in menopause, and especially with mental health concerns, we tend to isolate and withdraw, and we feel like we're the only ones going through things. So that's one part of it. And something that you said, Nat, made me think about, you know, selecting who you want to surround yourself with. And I thought, yeah, you get to the point of your life where you go, I'm going to stop giving too many Fs about what people think of me, and I'm going to find my people, the people that really I connect with, and I'm going to start shedding those toxic or unhelpful people and things from my life. It seems to be this watershed moment. What do you guys think of that?
Bang on. You're right. You're so right about the, giving less Fs, because I think women are entering this part of their life where they've realised they've had a good amount of life behind them, and not that there's been wasted opportunities, but it's like they've got an awakening that's happening, and they're starting to see life for what it is and what it can be to them, not so much around what other people think. And even for the woman that's still in that vortex, I suppose, of worrying about what other people think, it's a real aha moment when they get to this point and they think, oh my God, I've just been concentrating on many of the things that aren't important. And so there's a real importance around life about what's important to me. Often we're faced with parents that are aging, and you can see what's ahead of you, I suppose, and where they are in life, and you make some decisions about where you want to go at that point in time. So it's definitely a time just to really embrace life and just take it for what it means for you, and giving less regard to what other people are thinking. It's very powerful.
I was just going to jump in there and say that we know that our 40s and 50s are an opportune time, and obviously not to take away from other decades, but we know that this is the time where we come into our greatest sense of purpose and fulfillment, and wanting to kick some personal and professional goals. I was speaking to someone the other day who said, I don't know what it was, but I reached 50 and I sort of thought, okay, what is it that I still want to do? And it's not that life is over, but it's like, well, I've got 40 years potentially that I'll live beyond 50. And there's that focus around, okay, I want to do these, but then surrounding yourself with people who will lift you up, and people who have similar experiences, people as well who just want to see you succeed too, and just get such an immense sense of joy when they see you succeed. You can be surrounded across your lifetime by people who might be on the surface level wanting to see you succeed, but then behind your back, they're feeling like, oh God, and then start talking about what you're doing and what you're not doing. But just to be surrounded by people who just want to lift you up and see you succeed, I think that's really important, because it's confidence breeds confidence, and power breeds power. And I think if we can all do that and collectively come together, I think that's really, it's amazing.
Yeah, and why would you kind of realize, why would you even invest an ounce of energy in something that doesn't do that?
Yeah.
Well, time's too precious, isn't it? I mean, you don't want to waste any more if you realise that there's been some stuff that's preceded you that hasn't really served you.
Yeah, and I think plus, as you mentioned, there's so much going on. There are the layers of complexity at this age. There's kids growing up, ailing parents and siblings, and friends start dying and getting sick. And you start to really consider what is important. And with my limited time and energy, how do I want to spend that and invest that in the best and most positive way possible?
Yeah, very true. We know time is finite, and it can be morbid sometimes thinking about your own mortality, but it drives action, and it drives us to appreciate that every day is absolutely precious, and filling our days with people that lift us up is really important.
And so now I'd like to translate that concept of connection into community, because we can want to connect, but we might not know where to find people to connect with, or where the safe space is, or who we can trust with some of these more personal things that are happening. And as the generation that, in my point of view, we're the push through and get it done kind of generation going through menopause right now, we can tend to think, well, I can do all of this. I'm capable. I'm competent. I don't need help. But then at some point you realize that you're overwhelmed with all of this stuff. So connection's one thing, but how do you translate that into community, where you have this safe space to go to, where you know that you can talk to like-minded people, where there isn't that judgment and criticism, where everyone's open?
Yeah, good point. I think first and foremost, you need to understand why you want to connect, or make the case to connect. I think that's really important, because it's easier not to connect with people sometimes, and it's easier to stand in the background and say, well, I don't need that. I've got enough friends around me. But when you are going through such a transformational change, there is a lot of feelings that, outside of the physical changes that we're going through, we know that those physiological and those psychological changes are deeply impactful. And we've seen through our work that just that experience of loneliness and isolation, and not to be mistaken from being alone, women are surrounded, they've got people around them at home or friends or in the workplace, but there's that sense of loneliness and isolation because they don't feel like they can actually talk about their experience or be open about their experience. And I think we tend to worry about what other people might think about it, and what fears might we start to project on those people, and they push back and say, no, I don't even want to talk about it. Don't even mention the word menopause. So I think first and foremost is really making that case to connect. What could connecting with someone or a group of people actually do for you? And then finding where you can connect with those people to create or be part of a community. So I think about, as you were talking, Mel, I was taken back to when I had my daughter, and we know the local councils create mothers groups. And so they just bring women from all walks of life within the area, and they create a community of women who are in a similar phase of life, navigating all the challenges of being new mums. And that instantly creates a community. And whether you're together for 6 months or 6 years, you've got that community. So I think, again, finding where can you connect with people that you've got some like-mindedness. And it is a little bit, as adults, we tend not to go out and find friends or feel like we can find friends at our age. But it's almost just taking that plunge to make that first step.
Nat, you make a really good point. I'm just thinking, for a lot of women that they have sort of ready-made communities, especially if they have children through the school community. So through your primary school and to a lesser extent in secondary school, you've got that community there that's just it's not thrust upon you. It's just there when your kids start school, right? But then as your children grow up, and they move away, become more independent, they're still at school, that community does start to fade a bit as well. And then their after school community activities they also drop off, as they're getting older. So some of those communities that you've become accustomed to for however many years start to fade away. So then you've got a person who's getting older, still in their sort of late 40s, early 50s, mid 50s, but they start looking for a new community as well that meets them where they are in life. And I don't think we talk about that enough as well. And you can see how as people age and do get older, how that loneliness factor can really settle in. So that it's, I often hear about people that might retire early, and I go, hey, that's great, but just make sure you stay connected. Find something of interest where you can stay connected, have like-minded people, that you have a community that you can go to, because as Nat said, you're probably not so inclined to go out and find those people when you're older as opposed to when you're younger. And I think when you're younger, you seek out communities, whether you've got children or not, that you can become a part of. And for some reason that can become a little bit harder when you're older.
Mm. I think particularly there's a couple of things that come to mind as you're talking about the challenges of forming communities or being part of a community as you're older. And one of them is, if you think about any relationship that you have, it's formed on alignment of values and experiences. And so people, as you said, Lisa, they tend to drift apart and go on in different directions as the kids grow up, and that mother's group may not be the same thing that it used to be. And I think then there's the other point that in terms of communities, we want to be heard and not judged. And I'm thinking of an example of someone I spoke to recently who's taking hormone replacement therapy because her mental health is challenged if she's not taking that. And she's had a very difficult menopause. Even though she's now in her 60s, she has to keep taking this medication. If she comes off it, her mental health really declines. And she mentioned at a recent group discussion to somebody else that she'd had a very difficult experience with her mental health in menopause. And this other person said, "Oh, menopause, I just got on with it." And so that person felt really dismissed. Now, that's a friendship group. And that person now, who is taking the medication, now no longer wants to be part of that group because she feels dismissed. And so sometimes I think the group that we're a part of and that we know isn't fit for purpose. It's not perhaps empathetic or aware or understanding enough for the person who might be going through some real challenges in their health at midlife.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think you make a really great point. We actually did a survey recently around the need for social connection in menopause. Yeah. And one of the real telltale signs around that change in interactions and relationships was we had 41% of women said that, yes, their social interactions and relationships had changed since entering menopause, and 21% said somewhat. So, just over 60% in the realm of it, some people have had some impact their social connections and relationships. And I suspect what you're touching on there, Mel, is possibly exactly that reason, that they're either dismissed and not able to talk about it, or feel like they can't talk about it out of fear of being judged. But also there's that social change as well, and that loss of confidence that we have, or even that loss of identity that happens too, that so many women talk about as well. It's a really important topic and opportunity for us to all sort of stand up and look at how are we interacting with the women in our life who might be making comments, or maybe putting out an olive branch of wanting to have a conversation. How are we reacting and responding to those women's calls for help, or just for friendship, or opportunity to feel safe and have a conversation?
Isn't it interesting, as you're talking through that wonderful analogy, Nat, I'm just thinking to myself, is it any wonder why there is so much taboo around menopause, around a very natural part of our life, and conversations that we should be easily happening just don't, because of what you've just explained. It's mind-boggling, isn't it?
And I almost wonder if the idea of a community for women in menopause is there is a prerequisite that you're somebody who's open to listening and learning about other people's experiences, rather than saying, well, I know my experience, so what? You kind of can't have that attitude coming into a community. What do you think about that?
No, I agree. I think active listening is the probably most underutilized skill that we have, and possibly because we're more distracted than ever before too. If you think about it, we've got that many devices buzzing and going off that, are we actually mindfully and meaningfully connecting with people that we're listening to them? And I think it's important that we don't need to have the answers. We know from various research that women are not looking for, whether it's the workplace or family members, to fix their menopause, but rather they just want someone that they can talk to, and they just want to be seen and heard for where they are. And I think just that active listening is really important, that you've got to be there for the right reasons and sharing experiences.
Anything to add, Lisa?
No, I think Nat's bang on. It just highlights the importance of the community, that, it works for the person and the other people in it, but just finding the right one. And sometimes it's not very easy to do either. It's just seeking it out. And then there's a loss of confidence that women also experience through this time. So they may not have the confidence to go out and experience and start the conversation. And that's really sad, just those common things that we take for granted before that confidence takes a bit of a dive. And then women sort of wake up overnight sometimes, so, not necessarily overnight, but over a certain time where they just don't have that confidence that they once would have to seek out that community. So it's really important that we've got these communities out there that welcome others to join and have the conversation.
And probably as a heads up, and we will talk about your specific example in a moment, but as a heads up to some of the topics that come to my mind, thinking about what would a community even talk about, what might I get out of it? As somebody who hasn't had biological children, I have a wonderful stepdaughter, but I've never had my own kids, and I know others who are single and have no children. For some women like me, or not specifically me, but others I know, there's a grieving process at having lost the opportunity to have children, and that's a big part of the conversation that others don't understand, and they're carrying on about grandkids, and these people without kids are feeling discombobulated and isolated for that reason. And then there's severe mental health concerns, there's severe physical health, there's some people have parents that are going through really tough times, some people are running businesses. I mean, we all have these different contexts, and there are some really big topics that can come up in a conversation that you might really need to want to talk about and get things off your chest.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, and empathy goes a long way, doesn't it? And I think here's an opportunity for us women in a community around menopause to really tap into our strength of being that nurturer and the empathetic, again, not taken away from men so much, but we do have that natural nurturing and caring strength or character strength within us. And it's a really great opportunity for us to nurture that and tap into that. And as I said, not have the answers, but just listen, just help other women be seen and heard and not dismissed.
So I'd love to hear about what you've both created in terms of a community that really supports women at this important transitional stage of life.
Yeah, well, on the back of our survey that we did, and look, we did this survey knowing full well that loneliness and isolation feeling is very prominent because we hear it so much through our workshops and the work that we do. But the survey really solidified for us that there's a need there to bring women together to talk. And that's why we called it Let's Talk, to create that space where women can just come in and talk about their experience, to feel safe to open up around whatever experience they are having, whatever phase or stage of menopause that they are in, and just know that this is the place to have those conversations that perhaps they can't have anywhere else in their full glory, might I say, because, there's probably times where we dampen down our conversation, or we might bring some humor into conversations when in actual fact I'm really struggling inside. So it's opportunity for women to come as their full selves and have that conversation. So we have weekly live meetups, as well as also then dropping in various resources and topics of conversation. But essentially for us, first and foremost, it was really just about bringing women together to feel like they could be safe to talk.
Mm-hmm. And when you say live meetups, is that face-to-face? Is it online? How does that work?
Online at the moment, but we would love to try and extend this and create face-to-face meetups. We've seen the power. We actually run a women in business networking event called Thrive Together. And can I just say, we started this 3 years ago and very organically grew out of wanting to support the woman behind the business. And we've seen just the impact of having those face-to-face connections. Online works beautifully in being able to, if you can't geographically get to locations, but for us, we really thrive on the energy of being face to face with people. And so that is our our focus in trying to bring women across the country together face to face.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that emotional face-to-face contact that women just do better than men generally, without generalising. But, we've got women turning up to that meetup, hugging each other for the first time, and they don't know each other at all. And that's pretty powerful. And then you see the power of them wanting to come back again and again. And it's so successful that it was a sellout last month. So there's definitely something there. And I suppose that our hope is that we can replicate that online as well, for a safe community for women to come to, where they're not judged, and be able to bring out whatever the topic is front of mind for them that day. And it really is just an opportunity to, get feedback, get some advice. How have you done this? Has it happened to you? And know that they're not just the only person that's experiencing whatever it is that they're experiencing when they bring along that point of discussion for that session on that day.
I was just thinking about how important that is to also have. I mean, I love the face-to-face, and I agree that it's women's sweet spot to have that personal connection. But also for those of us living in rural, remote, regional areas, sometimes there aren't services available, and having that online connection is so valuable.
Yeah, definitely. And that was part of creating this as well, because we know that there are so many women in rural regional areas that possibly have to travel hours upon hours to even go and see a doctor. And, if we could be a place where they could come in and learn a little bit, try and break down some of the taboo and the stigma. We often say that, the education is our greatest defense to the fear that is out there around this phase of life. And if we could provide, whether it's learning through the experiences of other women, or it's learning directly from us as coaches or experts in this field, then, that's a really positive thing that we can do through this community.
And so important to have people who are experienced like yourselves, and that evidence-based information that you can provide. Because, I mean, I was just thinking, whenever you've got a problem, what do? You jump on the internet and you look for an answer, and then you think, well, who do I trust? Is this real? Is this valid? Is this accurate? And there's certainly, you would have seen the data around showing that so much of what's being published online isn't true, isn't accurate, isn't evidence-based. And so if you're looking for something in a time of crisis, how do you know what to trust? And having that professionalism, I think, is such an important part of the community, not just a Facebook group or not just a little catch-up circle, but an actual established, professional, credible platform for people to really feel like they're going to not just be heard, but get access to evidence-based information.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember reading some research a little while ago how women are just drawn to, there's a problem or there's some adversity or whatever that comes up, and they're just drawn to want to be able to talk about it with other women. And that's not necessarily something that men do naturally, but it comes so naturally to women. So even though they might be feeling a little bit underconfident or not sure about bringing it up, 9 times out of 10, being able to discuss it can actually be such a big game changer for them, for whatever it is, whatever the problem is that they're facing. And that's where I think communities have another really amazing purpose for women to be able to talk and share what it is that they're facing. And I think, I just think that what we've created really provides that element, especially with menopause or perimenopause and beyond, being such a big, it's the next phase of their life that they're going to be in for the rest of their life. So why not talk about it? They haven't been there before, but why not join a community where they can actually discuss it and make the tweaks they might need to, or, develop new friendships or new relationships to be able to discuss what's going on.
And just further to your point, Mel, too, I just wanted to chime in, because you do make such a good point that, yes, we all know Dr. Google, I put in inverted commas, but that information there is so accessible to get. But if we're not getting timely evidence-based information, well, we're just adding to the stress in our mind, the thoughts, the fear, and the taboo. I remember distinctly, and it's actually stuck with me. I had a friend a few years ago who she wasn't doing a lot of exercise, but she said that she read an article online and was talking about how, you know, in not doing exercise, her bones are going to eventually crumble and shatter. And he said this to me,
Wow.
and this was, I'm going back probably 5 years ago, and it's just stuck with me, and it made me think, you know, this really scared the crap out of her when she read this article. And then I don't know if it made her take some action or not, but it's just the fact that there was information there that really scared her and added more fear into our aging process. That, yeah, in getting, you know, inaccurate information or words like that, or personal sentiments of things that are out there from different people, it really just adds to the fuel to the fire of fear and overwhelm too.
Absolutely. We'd love to know more about Let's Talk Girls. How can we connect people listening to this with your membership, with your community?
Yeah, thanks, Mel. We've got a link on our website. So our website is ownyourhealthco.com.au, and women can go there and book or secure their spot. It's an annual membership fee. At the moment, it's $99 per person.
Wow.
I know. It's really important.
Super affordable.
Yeah, and it was really important for us around that community. We wanted to make it accessible to as many women as possible and just help start this conversation and create that safe space. So we have just launched it not so long ago. So women that do come on to the community, you know, come on as founding members, and that'll be their lifetime fee every year, $99 per year.
That's such great value for such high quality support. I love it, and we'll definitely put a link in the show notes to your community. And thank you both for being on the podcast today. Do either of you have anything to say before we wrap up?
I just love to, I mean, if there are any women that are struggling from that community and connection element, I would love to see them join it with us, really just so we can provide something to them that gives them some, realigns their purpose and just reminds them of how truly wonderful they are. And it's not really a phase of life to be feared. It's just new learnings and new education and a bit of a tweak, I suppose, in relation to how we live our life. We know that living our life in this phase is not the same as it was 20 or 30 years ago, and there is a lot of misinformation and non-information out there around how they can do that tweaking, and it's certainly not as hard as what they might think it is, or as drastic as what they think they might have to do as well to manage their health moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to jump in and say that menopause is the catalyst to bringing us women together in Let's Talk. It's not necessarily, going to be your lifetime focus, but it's a catalyst to introduce you to women who are in a very similar phase. And I can tell you that all of these women see you, hear you, and want to see you achieve great things and go on to live a very healthy, vibrant life as well. And, as much as we're all in the phase of perimenopause or menopause, there's wonderful connections that we make with personal hobbies and professional work and a range of different things as well. So, you bring your whole self no matter what you do for a career or work or personal life.
That sounds amazing. And I love that it's positively focused. I hear there are a lot of groups around that are focused on complaining, and I love that it's this supportive, listening, positive, which is exactly what you need at this challenging and exciting time of life. Thanks both so much for being here today.
Thanks, Mel, for having us.
Thank you so much.
Look forward to seeing you again soon.